The first time Saram Vale saw Marissa Alden wearing his late mother's pearl necklace, standing beside him in the bright afternoon dining room like she belonged there, he forgot the dinner was supposed to be a lie. For one breathless second, the empty house did not feel empty, the broken places inside him did not ache, and the woman who had once been nothing more than his ex-fiancée's mother looked at him with such quiet tenderness that he nearly believed life had finally forgiven him. Before we go deeper into this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strange ways broken hearts can find healing, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries for more heart-touching stories. Saram had not planned to ask Marissa for help. In fact, he had spent nearly a year avoiding the Alden family completely after his engagement to Celeste collapsed 3 weeks before the wedding. It had ended badly, not with screaming, but with something worse: silence, disappointment, and a ring left on the kitchen counter while morning sunlight slipped through the blinds. Celeste had chosen a career overseas, a new life, and eventually, according to a mutual friend, someone else. Saram never hated her for leaving, but he hated the pity that followed. At family gatherings, neighbors whispered that he had been abandoned. At work, people treated him like a man made of glass. And at home, his father's health declined under the weight of worry, as if seeing his only son alone had aged him faster than illness ever could. That day, Saram's father, Rafiq Vale, was being discharged from the hospital after a frightening heart episode. The doctors said he needed calm, warmth, and hope around him. But Rafiq had only one request before coming home. He wanted to have dinner with Saram and the woman who had made the house feel alive again. He meant Celeste. No one had told him the engagement was over. Saram had tried several times, but each attempt ended with his father closing his tired eyes and saying he only wanted one peaceful thing left in his life. So Saram lied by silence, hoping there would be more time. There was no more time. Rafiq was coming home at 4, and Saram stood in the grocery store at noon holding a basket of vegetables, unable to breathe. He could not call Celeste. He would not beg someone who had already left. Then he saw Marissa Alden near the bakery section, choosing a loaf of bread with careful hands. She looked different from the woman he remembered from engagement dinners. Softer, quieter, lonelier somehow. Her silver-streaked brown hair was pinned loosely, and her pale blue cardigan made her look like someone who had spent years taking care of everyone else while forgetting herself. When Saram explained everything in the parking lot, he expected shock, judgment, maybe even anger. Instead, Marissa listened without interrupting. Her face changed when he mentioned his father. She had always liked Rafiq, always admired his gentle humor and old-fashioned manners. For a long moment, she looked down at her hands, then said she would come. Not as Celeste, not as a deception, but as someone who could sit beside him, help carry the evening, and let an old man have one dinner without heartbreak. By 3:30, Marissa was in Saram's kitchen, sunlight pouring through the windows, chopping carrots like she had cooked there for years. The house smelled of roasted chicken, rosemary, warm bread, and apple tea. Saram moved around awkwardly, setting plates, wiping counters that were already clean, trying not to notice how naturally she belonged in the silence. She did not fill every space with talk. She simply made the room feel safe. When she noticed the pearl necklace on the sideboard, she asked about it, and Saram told her it had belonged to his mother. Marissa touched it gently and said it was beautiful. Without thinking, Saram said his father might smile if she wore it. The request embarrassed him instantly, but Marissa only nodded and fastened it around her neck. When Rafiq arrived, weak but smiling, he looked at Saram first, then at Marissa. Something flickered in his eyes, a recognition not of identity, but of comfort. He did not call her Celeste. He simply said the house smelled like happiness. That one sentence nearly broke Saram. Throughout dinner, Marissa carried the evening with graceful warmth. She asked Rafiq about his old teaching days, laughed at his stories, helped him remember the garden he once loved, and gently placed food on his plate when his hands trembled. Saram watched her from across the table, feeling something unfamiliar rise inside him. Gratitude at first. Then admiration. Then fear, because Marissa was not pretending to care. That was the dangerous part. Her kindness was real. Every glance she gave Sarim held understanding, not pity. Every time his father drifted into sadness, she guided him back with patience. At one point, when Rafik spoke about Sarim needing someone who would not leave him alone in storms, Marissa looked down, and Sarim saw tears shining in her eyes. After dinner, Rafik fell asleep in his chair near the window, the afternoon light soft around him. Sarim and Marissa cleared the table together without speaking. Their hands touched over a plate, and neither moved away immediately. The house was quiet except for the clinking dishes and the distant sound of birds outside. Sarim wanted to thank her, but the words felt too small. She had not just saved him from an uncomfortable conversation. She had given his father peace. She had given Sarim a glimpse of a life he thought had closed forever. When they stepped into the hallway, Marissa reached for the pearl necklace, ready to remove it. Sarim said she could keep wearing it until she left. She looked at him, and in that moment, the act between them finally cracked. Her voice lowered until it was almost a whisper, and she said, "This doesn't feel like an act anymore." Sarim's heart stopped. He knew all the reasons the moment was impossible. She was older than him. She was Celeste's mother. People would talk. Celeste would despise it. His father might misunderstand. The world had rules for grief, love, loyalty, and shame. But standing there in the soft daylight, with dinner plates still warm in the kitchen and his father sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, Sarim realized the heart does not always heal in ways people approve of. Sometimes it reaches for the person who stayed. Marissa stepped back first, as if frightened by her own honesty. She apologized, saying the evening had been emotional, that loneliness could confuse people, that kindness sometimes wore the mask of something deeper. But Sarim did not let her bury the truth alone. He told her that nothing about her kindness felt confusing to him. It felt like the first honest thing in his life in a long time. The days that followed were careful. Marissa visited Rafik twice, always in daylight, always with soup, books, or fresh flowers from her small garden. Sarim told himself she came only for his father, but every visit left the house warmer. She and Sarim began talking in the kitchen after Rafik slept. They spoke about Celeste, not with bitterness, but with acceptance. Marissa admitted her daughter had always been restless, always chasing distant lights. She confessed that after her husband died years earlier, she had poured all her love into Celeste and forgotten she was still a woman with her own heart. Sarim listened, and for the first time, he saw Marissa not as someone's mother, not as a reminder of his failed engagement, but as a person who had been quietly lonely in rooms full of people. Their bond grew slowly, respectfully, almost painfully. There were no reckless promises, no stolen romance hidden in shadows. There were afternoons in the garden, cups of tea left half-finished, shared laughter over Rafik's stubbornness, and silences that felt more intimate than words. Sarim began repairing the old fence because Marissa mentioned the garden needed more sunlight. Marissa began leaving handwritten recipes on his fridge. Rafik noticed everything, of course. One afternoon, while Marissa trimmed roses near the porch, he told Sarim that some people come into a house as guests but leave fingerprints on the soul. The truth finally came when Celeste returned unexpectedly. She arrived one bright Saturday afternoon in a white rental car, sunglasses on, suitcase in hand, looking polished, successful, and completely unprepared to find her mother laughing with Sarim in the garden. The air changed instantly. Celeste looked from Sarim to Marissa, then to the pearl necklace resting against her mother's blouse. Her face hardened, not because she loved Sarim still, but because life had moved without asking her permission. There were tears. There were accusations. Celeste called it betrayal. Marissa stood pale but steady as Sarim expected her to defend herself. Instead, Marissa took her daughter's hands and told her the truth with heartbreaking calm. She said she had spent her whole life being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's support, and she had never imagined love could visit her again in such an unexpected form. She said Sarim had not stolen anything from anyone. Celeste had left him, and Marissa had found him broken, not waiting. She said kindness had grown into companionship, and companionship had become something sacred. Celeste cried then, not with rage, but with the pain of realizing her mother was human. Sarim did not speak until Celeste turned to him. He told her he had forgiven her long ago, but forgiveness did not mean freezing his life at the moment she walked away. He wished her happiness, but he could not apologize for finding peace. The garden went quiet after that, sunlight falling across all three of them like a judgment and a blessing that it took time. Celeste did not accept it that day. She left before dinner, and Marissa broke down afterward, saying no love was worth losing her daughter. Sarim held her hand but did not pressure her. He told her real love would never ask her to choose in panic. So they waited. Weeks passed. Rafik grew stronger. Marissa visited less at first, then returned with cautious hope. Celeste sent one message, then another. The first was cold. The second was confused. The third simply asked if her mother was happy. Months later, on a clear afternoon, they held a small dinner in the same dining room where the lie had begun. This time, nothing was pretend. Rafik sat at the head of the table, healthier, smiling softly. Celeste came too, quieter than before, carrying flowers. She did not call Sarim family, not yet, but when she saw her mother wearing the pearl necklace, she did not ask her to take it off. That was enough. Near the end of dinner, Marissa stood to bring dessert, but Sarim stopped her gently. In front of the people who had once represented his deepest heartbreak, he thanked her for the dinner that saved his father, for the kindness that saved him, and for the courage to love when the world might misunderstand. He did not make a grand proposal. He simply asked if she would keep choosing honest days with him, one morning, one dinner, one season at a time. Marissa's eyes filled with tears, and she said yes. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes love can heal in unexpected ways, comment your feelings, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries so more stories like this can reach people who need hope. Special request: comment kindness deserves a second chance. If you believe the heart can find love again after loss. Years later, Sarim would still remember that first dinner whenever afternoon light entered the dining room. He would remember the fear, the lie, the trembling plates, the whispered confession in the hallway. But most of all, he would remember the lesson that changed his life forever. Sometimes the person who helps you pretend to be whole becomes the person who teaches you how to truly heal.